hill outside Rome is Castel Gandolfo, the summer palace of the Pope. Above this, an observatory, where some of the world's most renowned theologians and scientists are gathered for a conference entitled Divine Action in the World.
In any case, just to keep in mind, I'm looking for objectively special divine action in a non-intervention strategy with apparent religious presuppositions. I don't expect it to be there for neutral eyes. You see it through the eyes of faith. It's Fides Corns and elect.
They've been invited by the Vatican in an historic initiative to explore whether evidence of God's existence can be found in the natural world.
We want to know how it is that the human race became what it is over millions of years of genetic development. And then the question is, did God have a providential hand in this development? If God did, how would we discern that hand? Is that leading towards some positive purpose that God has for the future of the world? We don't have answers to these questions, but we do believe there's only one reality, one world. The scientists look at it this way, the theologians look at it that way, and is there a way that somehow or other these visions can be brought together? These are the kinds of questions that we're asking and the agenda that we're pursuing.
On the streets of Italy, the faithful are gripped by miracle fever. They have a vision of the world which revolves not around science, but around signs and wonders. Believers claim to suffer stigmata. Statues are seen to tremble and bleed. Visionaries offer prophecy and healing. This is a record turnout for a yearly event which draws thousands, a procession of holy relics. These caskets hold the tongue and finger of St. Anthony, a Franciscan monk who died here in Padua in 1231. Anthony is known as a teacher of the Gospels, a preacher against heretics, but most of all, as a saint who makes miracles happen. After Lourdes, St. Anthony's Basilica is the most popular shrine in the Catholic faith, and belief in his miraculous power makes Anthony the most popular saint in the world.
I believe actually that there is the demand for miracles is increasing. You know, probably people were expecting more from science or from medicines or from other things, and probably they had a kind of delusion because you can't expect everything from science. And so people have begun to go back to religion, to faith, to get an answer to their problems, to some problems who actually can't be answered by anybody else than by God.
The saints are said to act through God on behalf of the faithful, but it's physical contact through which the faithful get in touch with the saints. Relics, like St. Anthony's tomb, are the channels for requesting and receiving signs of the supernatural. For the devout, this is how divine action works in the world. Testaments to St. Anthony's powers adorn the church. Scientific evidence of the miraculous is scarce. Instead, photographs and letters testify to belief in wonders, lives created, lives reborn, lives spared.
The gospel is the bridge between us and God. And Anthony is telling, look, I'm giving you something, and only through this book you will fully understand God's love. So he's saying this with very simple words, even using the miraculous, the miracle, just to let you know that God really loves you, because sometimes we really need some kind of, of approbation. We need to feel that somebody loves us. And so he's saying, look, God has done something for you because he loves you.
In a nation dominated by religion, there is always somewhere to go when science fails to deliver. For 10 years, doctors searched for a cure to restore Eleanor's speech. Finally, her parents turned to St. Anthony.
I don't remember anything before the miracle, only what my parents and my school friends told me. They remember the time when I couldn't speak and the day when I completely got my speech back.
È successo tutto una mattina, improvvisamente.
It all happened suddenly, one morning. It was a Monday morning, I remember. We got up for breakfast and our daughter called us from her bedroom.
Mamma, vieni qui.
She said, "Mummy, come here," saying the words one after the other. It was marvelous, undescribable. Our daughter was suddenly cured.
For me, it's a miracle. It's not that we're just calling it a miracle. It was a miracle.
To qualify for sainthood, you must have performed miracles. The Vatican continues to create new saints, and deciding who fills these heavenly posts is the job of the Congregation for the Causes of the Saints. They scrutinize countless claims of the miraculous, but nowadays the congregation requires the help of science.
We never asked the medical specialist, is this a miracle? We simply asked them, can you explain this? And here we take extraordinary care because the Church is not eager to proclaim a miracle, which after all is a very extraordinary event, unless we get the assurance of a board of highly qualified technical people whom we can call over from all over the world. There are Nobel Prize doctors among them. They are not necessarily Catholics. They may be Jews, they may be agnostics, they may be atheists. But we asked them, well, would you be willing to examine this case? If you can give us an explanation, scientific explanation, fine, we will throw out a case right away, because we are not interested to present something as a miracle unless we are backed up by the best scientists in the world we can find.
This shrine is dedicated to a modern saint who was himself a scientist, the medical doctor Giuseppe Moscati. The relationship between the sacred and the scientific is complex. The aim of science is to explain the previously inexplicable. In the case of miracles, however, the Church depends on science failing to come up with an explanation. In effect, where science fails, faith begins. Dr. Moscati died in 1937. He was a much-loved local figure, famous for his healing arts. The miracle which made him a saint belongs to a blacksmith from Naples. For the past 15 years, Giuseppe Montefusco has enjoyed good health. But at the age of 20, he was diagnosed as suffering from leukemia. He was given only a few weeks to live when at his hospital bedside he saw an apparition of the dead Dr. Moscati. The news of Giuseppe's subsequent cure brought another visitation, this time from living representatives of the Vatican.
Mi hanno scortato al primo policlinico a Napoli, I sacerdoti e I dottori dell'ospedale.
First, they listened to me at the hospital in Naples. The priests and doctors of the Vatican, there were 10 of them who held this trial for Giuseppe Moscati. And they saw the reality of my miracle.
Ho avuto un miracolo. Mia madre si è sonnata, ci è venuto in sonno Giuseppe Moscati.
My mother had a strange dream, and in her dream she bought a little picture of Giuseppe Moscati for 2,000 lire. Then he appeared to her in this dream and gave her 2 eggs. The next day, my mother came to see me in the hospital. She gave me a picture of Giuseppe Moscati and 2 eggs she had bought because of her dream.
È venuto all'ospedale e mi ha portato un quadretto di Giuseppe Moscati. Mi ha detto, tieni, mettili sul comodino.
She said, take these eggs and pray to this picture of the Blessed Doctor who does many miracles. Pray to him that you will get well. Later on, it must have been 3 in the morning, the door opened and a doctor came in, pushing a trolley with little bottles on it. The trolley was very old. It was made of dark wood. This doctor had on a long white coat down to his feet. I thought I would ask him if he could do anything for me. In that moment, he turned and said, "No, you don't need anything. There's nothing wrong with you." The next day, I asked the nurses if during the night someone had come in. The nurses said I was dreaming. But from that moment, I started to get better.
In the decade since Moscati was canonized, there have been countless miracles laid at his feet. Through the Signs and Wonders grapevine, news has spread of the saint's powers to heal, and every day pilgrims from all over Italy flock to his shrine. Once the Vatican declare themselves convinced by the miracles required for sainthood, they are less inclined to pass judgment on the subsequent wonders. But the Church has to keep an eye on science in case a new discovery should explain the previously inexplicable.
We are not afraid of what science has to say. If science would say, well, this type of cases should in future not be considered as miracles, we will follow their advice. I mean, it would be foolish. As we, in a sense, we do not resent, but I mean, at times I'm a little bit astounded that some physicists and people like that venture into the realm of philosophy and all that. That's fine, it's their privilege, but I mean, they can't prove certain statements they make. Let them keep to their science as we keep to our business.
Throughout history, science and religion had not been content to mind their own business, nor have they been willing to go their own separate ways. The enlightened scholarship of the Renaissance was ruthlessly suppressed by the Church. Galileo was persecuted for daring to argue that the sun, not the earth, was the center of the solar system. The astronomer Bruno was burnt at the stake as a heretic. His crime was to suggest that the universe might be infinite. Some among the science community in Italy fear that the present revival of religion could bring about the return of intolerance. The skeptical science organization CICOP have set out to investigate the miraculous in an attempt to restore the calm of reason in a storm of irrational faith.
Well, we live in very interesting times where people can believe that plaster statue can weep. And this, we investigated it.
Yeah, we had an epidemic of weeping Madonnas here in Italy last year, and you never see the phenomenon itself happening, taking place. You always arrive too late, and if you ask a chemist, how would you make a statue weep without holes in the eyes and without electronic devices? Well, it's very simple. The idea is that you have some liquid inside the statue, and the liquid will flow out through the pores of the plaster material or ceramic material of the statue. So you can fill the statue with liquid and scratch the glazing near the eyes. So in that point, from that position, tears will flow out. Well, the most famous Italian miracle is the liquefying blood of St. Januarius. And this is interesting because it's not a medical miracle. It's a physical phenomenon that, in principle, could be studied by the exact science, like physics or chemistry. And this is one of those phenomena that are claimed that cannot be reproduced or understood.
Twice a year in Naples, what is claimed to be the dried blood of St. Januarius is displayed to check the fortunes of the city for the forthcoming year. If the blood liquefies, good luck for Naples is assured. Golaschelli's findings have gained him international attention, but the Church will not allow him to test this relic.
There is at least one physical chemical property of some materials, and it is thixotropy, by which a substance can change from solid to liquid by moving it or shaking it or tapping it. And we have been able to produce a number of samples of this substance using techniques and materials available in the Middle Age, 600 years ago, when the relic first occurred historically.
Of course, it would be fantastic to find a real paranormal phenomena. However, as history shows, it's like 110 years that scientific investigation on these supposed phenomena has been run, and not even one single phenomenon stands close scrutiny from science.
More challenging to scientific inquiry than weeping statues are the sudden healings, often described as miraculous. Monsignor Emanuele Melingo holds services throughout Italy which attract thousands. The ecstatic faithful queue to get close to Melingo, convinced he has the power to heal the sick and exorcise the possessed. At today's ceremony, there are at least 2 amongst the congregation who are unlikely to be converted.
Ringraziamo, Signore. Grazie. Perché il diavolo non è capace di fare amicizia. Non è capace di fare amicizia. Per questo anche quelli che lo proteggano ora mai saranno amici di diavolo. Saranno distrutti. Riempici con tuo amore, riempici con la fede, la speranza, la fede, la speranza. Dacci coraggio, fortezza, coraggio di dare testimonianza, di dare testimonianza, di dare testimonianza, di non avere paura, di non avere paura, di non avere paura. Per mostrare la nostra vita cristiana. Prodiggi meraviglia. Oh Spirito Santo, Spirito prodiggi meraviglia. Non fare esorcismo. Se vuole venire un'altra diocesi, deve essere chiaro che tu non vieni qui per fare la messa di esorcismo. Oh, io ho detto, che fortunato è il diavolo.
We were there because we were curious. We had heard about this Melingo many times, so we were interested to see what happened in these meetings. We didn't expect any paranormal phenomena to happen. We saw a lot of disturbed people, people that may need a different kind of help.
Yes, generally when you think of an exorcism or devil's possession, you think of the movie The Exorcist, where this girl levitates and has this green vomit and that kind of paranormal phenomenon. But actually, when you see this kind of people, you only see mentally ill people, and nothing paranormal ever happens. So it's always a delusion for us, because maybe you can expect to see strange phenomena, physical phenomena, but they never happen.
They have the presumption that whatever they see, if it is not at all tangible, it is not true. Instead, myself, I say, neither do I know how this happens, nor did I study. I accept my part, my role, but I also accept my limits.
At first, also ecstasy was considered miracle in the past time. The same thing as a stigmata. It was something that good give to a person to distinguish him from other people, because probably he was a perfect man or a perfect woman. So now I try to demonstrate that ecstasy is a possibility for all men and all women, because in the religious manifestation there are many interesting things regarding the human condition.
Dr. Magnelli's research has also taken him out of the lab to study one of Italy's most famous charismatics, Pino Casagrande.
Mr. Casagrande had a true ecstasy. I have studied 35 episodes of his ecstasies. So I can verify this, and it was absolutely true, and also astonishing, an astonishing phenomenon.
Each week sees new recruits to Casagrande's visionary experience. Arriving at this gathering near Milan, his followers fully expect to encounter the miraculous.
Padre nostro che sei nei cieli, prega per noi peccatori, adesso è l'ora della nostra morte. Amen. Ti saluto e ti amo, Maria. Piena di grazia, il Signore è con te. Tu sei benedetta fra le donne, e benedetto il frutto del tuo seno, Gesù.
As the crowd reaches the fifth mystery of the Rosary, Casagrande falls into an ecstatic state. This is the moment, it is claimed, when the Madonna appears and communicates with Casagrande. It's also the cue for his followers to request a blessing and to capture the Virgin Mary's arrival on film. Polaroid images are shown and exchanged. Everyone appears convinced that the solar flares on celluloid reveal at least one member of the Holy Family and that a miracle has taken place.
People are coming here for many reasons, in the hope of seeing an apparition. Also, they hope to be cured, to be healed of any ailments they have. One time, my husband had a terrible hernia, and we thought perhaps he would have to be operated on. And he leaned. He wore this type of belt. The doctor gave him. He wore it for only about 3 or 4 times. He came here in terrible pain, and he leaned against the chapel here, and he was completely healed. Completely healed.
Years ago, doctors would have recommended a visit to the small spa town of Bagna di Lucca for their wealthier clients in need of healing. Today, scientists are transforming the disused bathhouses into an international centre for the study of religious and spiritual healing. Nestled in the Tuscan hills, the centre is running experiments to study congregations in worship and to see if brain activity synchronises during meditation. Here to observe is Dr. Peter Fenwick, acclaimed neuroscientist from Britain.
The pull between science and religion depends on our history of science. Science coming from the 17th century is Newtonian, Galilean. That which is real is velocity, motion, speed, etc. Now, the religious domain is the domain of experience. It's the domain of feeling. Now, that has not been a part of science at all. We've looked at an objective external world only. What is happening now is that the domain of experience, subjective experience, is beginning to come into the domain of science. So the question for science is, do acts of faith have a scientific formulation? And the answer is now, yes, they do. Just as in depressive illness, one can see that there are changes in the immune system of the body, so we can now see that belief systems can affect the way the body works. But not only that, the dissociated states that you see in people in church when they flop onto the floor, we know that those dissociated states can change body physiology in quite a marked way. So the whole question of belief and change in body function is now becoming very much part of science.
Scientists in Bagna di Lucca claim they can describe what happens when the brain activity of one individual synchronizes with the brain activity of another.
Usually when people are highly synchronized, they feel a lot of power. They feel powerful, they feel energy inside, they feel open. And when you feel in this, you feel that something can happen to you. Maybe you can heal yourself, or something can change in your mind. Your problem can be solved. There is kind of, let's call it a belief that, that some force can act on your life.
The world science community has yet to validate his findings, but Dr. Montecucco's description has some parallels with the miraculous anecdotes of the faithful. 2 years ago, a force acted on Giovanni Rienzo, which not only changed his life, but made converts of his village, who regularly travelled to worship at the shrine of Mascati, the doctor saint of Naples. Giovanni was diagnosed with a massive brain tumour from which he was given little chance of surviving. Before going into hospital for his operation, he came to this church. He claims that Saint Mascati interceded through the priest during confession.
The moment he put his hands on my head, I felt a strong heat, and after I felt a joy, an immense joy. He told me to say 5 Ave Marias and 5 Our Fathers, and he put his hands here. I took his hands. I kissed them. They were cold, icy, very cold.
Ma erano fredde, erano ghiacciate, proprio ghiacciate proprio, tanto fredde. Allora sono andata all'ospedale al martedì, alla sera, è venuto il professore ha detto, allora tu devi operare, dice sì.
I went to the hospital on Tuesday. In the evening the specialist came and he said, you have to have the operation. So he made me sign the permission slip. In the morning they did the scan again, but they found the tumour had gone. I had nothing wrong with me. The doctors sent me home because there was nothing wrong. Since that day the doctors say I am well, and I have been well ever since.
Investigators at Bagna di Lucca believe that miraculous healings can and do occur, and that science is close to identifying how a form of energy could be transferred from one person to another without any visible intervention. Here, they're attempting to reproduce this effect, supervised by science systems analyst Dr. Erwin Laszlo.
A conscious mind can act on the body. Yes, we know that. I think every physician would agree to it, that a certain kind of will to live, for example, can make a tremendous difference, can lead to spontaneous remissions also, as opposed to the will to die. Now, distance healing is another form of this. Space is not empty. Space is something that connects us, just like the internet connects us through the computers. Our brains are connected by a field that is a quantum field that carries information, basically. So I think what used to be considered a miraculous healing actually can be an act of either self-healing or healing by others. We're beginning to understand that this is possible. The data is there. We can reproduce this data. The experiments can be made in the laboratory.
Physician and healer Maria Saggi is attempting to divine a diagnosis through the energy fields she believes the body conveys across space. She has no contact with the patient being examined by another healer in the adjacent room. A photo of the subject and a medical textbook are Saggi's only points of reference. Subsequently, her findings will be checked against a conventional diagnosis.
Well, Maria, what have you found?
So, the main problem is, what I found, you see the big intestine here is bad.
Yes.
So it says that the body is exhausted. And this right kidney is also bad, but not that bad as the left one.
Yes.
You see the difference?
You want to see the difference at the left, which is the poorest side. Yes, not the right kidney.
The right kidney is just...
It's just up and down.
Up and down. That's the main problem.
Yeah, that's the main issue.
And it shows that...
At least in this instance, Dr. Saggi's diagnosis proved correct.
The new science will look at the miraculous in quite a different way. It will see, first of all, that miracles occur within cultures. What is miraculous in this culture is not miraculous in another culture. This means that what the Vatican is now saying is a miracle will not be a miracle possibly in future years, because it's limited to our culture as we, and our science as we understand it.
While the cultural ties which constrict science and religion appear to be loosening, the trend to take miracles seriously poses difficulties. The Church is embarrassed by Malingo and his rapidly growing band of followers for so eagerly requesting and so easily receiving the miraculous. But the Church can ill afford to reject this congregation, even if they are flirting with heresy. Christianity, after all, is a faith built around the belief in miracles.
If you believe in the words of God, and we do things in the name of Jesus, we cannot not destroy the works of the devil. And therefore, the devil, being aware that we are there to fight him and destroy his works, he cannot not react. And if there are those who are possessed, they know that if we begin to pray, we are praying against them. And the reaction of the possessed people is so terrible. You see, my masses, therefore, are masses of exorcism. And what they are at the moment trying to forbid, and they are forbidding, is exorcism. Exorcism, exorcism, exorcism. But John the Evangelist says Jesus came to destroy the work of the devil. And if he came to destroy the work of the devil, there we are.
If you look around, there is plenty of movements of faith healers, of charismatic exaggerations. I'm not against charismatics, but there are some, I mean, posing their hands and then pretending that people are healed and all that. Even in Catholic sanctuaries, you get people in Lourdes who go there, they are very ill, they hope to be cured and all that. It is not always easy and pastorally responsible just to stop them from doing this. But the ideal thing would be to direct their attention to what Christianity is all about, which doesn't coincide at all with these tendencies towards the miraculous.
Scientists have always believed that nuclear fusion can only take place in an environment as hot as the sun. But physicists in this lab are attempting to create nuclear fusion at room temperature. This would be cold fusion and the closest scientific equivalent to a miracle.
When conventional science say, this cannot be, what cannot be is a large part of human experience. So that part of human experience is given just to the world of religion, who just administrates this part of experience without deepening in anywhere. So in this way, there is a split in the human being between the rational part and the irrational part. And it is against this split that people longing for oneness, namely monist scientists, monist rationalists, or on the other hand, mystical people, struggle. So the real alliance between the throne and the altar is just the alliance between conventional science, when say this cannot be, this is superstition, and the church who say this cannot be understood because this is my kingdom. In a sense, the end of this split is just explaining miracles, showing that through miracles what appears is the inexhaustible strength and creativity of nature.
If I add something, my point of view is that the real miracle is the rationality of the world. The total rationality of the world. That's a real miracle, and which needs a miraculous founding act, you know.
Proved to be a reality, it might be the founding act of a new science, which would force us to re-examine our understanding of nature itself. But it might also offer science a fresh insight into the world of the supernatural. A science that can accept the notion of cold fusion should have little difficulty with the miracles which form the foundation of Christianity. Each day, thousands bear witness to one of the greatest miracles of the Catholic world, transubstantiation, the bread and wine of communion becoming the flesh and blood of Jesus Christ. This miracle is the center of the Catholic Mass. No one has invited science to investigate. Religion, it seems, has always had to retreat before the inevitable advance of science. And now that scientists are exploring the realm of religious experience, could future discoveries undermine the Church's own faith in the miraculous?
Of course, the Church believes in miracles, but this is a question that today is debated. I have debated it at length with our Holy Father, and he feels that humanity needs scientifically demonstrable proof that God intervenes in history. Now, is it possible that the Church later may renounce this requirement of miracles in the causes of saints? Certainly yes, and I hope so, because I don't think it's an essential element. Certainly it is not the substance of what we are doing in our congregation. It's a kind of confirmation. We can do without it. But notwithstanding that, I think the Church will always keep the belief that God has worked miracles in the past, that he can miracles, and probably is going to continue to work miracles. Now, this is a theological issue. This is not a question for medical people to decide.
If they say that God has done this miracle, then it's our duty to go there and check and see if there is really an evidence that the miracle occurred. And I think that religion should limit itself to the faith and not to push hard on miracles, because, well, you never convince really a scientist that a miracle indeed occurred.
Why does our current science not provide an adequate explanation for the miraculous, or, if you like, our religious experience? My own personal view is that we will only be able to do that when we have a science of consciousness. If you look at the deepest mystical experiences, what you see is a very wide state of man where he himself becomes very close to the divine. If you have a science which incorporates that, then you must have a world in which the divine is explained in scientific terms. But it's not going to be the science that you and I have now.
Spirituality is the level when rationality becomes global, in a sense. The more you encompass in the oneness of nature, more you become spiritual. In this sense, spiritual is getting in tune with the law of nature.
There is more to this world which gives us hope, which gives us a sense of meaning than the purely so-called scientific worldview has given us to believe. The new scientific worldview is closer to the spiritual worldview than the old one. And that, I think, is a wonderful, a hopeful phenomenon. I myself would hate to live in the old scientific worldview, in that kind of a world. I'm very happy in this new world, and I look forward to further discoveries in this that will perhaps bring us closer to religion, but not because they bring us closer to religion, but because they bring us close to the insights, to the intuitions that have always underlain religion.
Discoveries within the realm of religion are encouraging scientists to include the miraculous in a unified theory of the world. This could leave the Church without its mysteries, threatening the very foundations of its authority. But the unified theory which science is searching for has to date proved elusive. So there is still time for science and religion to agree a common framework of fact and faith.
I think evolution is telling us is already the result of the action of nature plus God. I don't think we can take God out of the experiment to see what nature do on its own. I think what we see and describe in terms of the categories of evolution is God acting in the world. So you might say nature plus God in a kind of equation, okay?
What we love about science is that we believe that that's the source of truth. If you really want to know what reality is like, you have to go to the scientists in order to find out. So science is the criterion of credibility in our culture. On the other hand, religion is what? Irrational? I think you'll find the theologians here believe that the Christian faith is just as rational as natural science is. So it's not really the rational versus the irrational. It's not knowledge versus faith. It's not that kind of a battle at all. Some people used to describe our situation as a warfare between science and faith or something like that. We're here to negotiate a peace.